Question 2 tells us that a boneless ham yields 68% edible portion when cooked. This basically means that when we cooked a ham, we had 68% of it left than what we originally started off with. So if the as-purchased cost of the boneless ham is $3.89 a pound, what is the cost per pound for the edible portion? In other words, we're looking for the edible portion unit cost. And if you remember your formula, to do that, we need to take the AP unit cost and divide it by the yield percent. Our AP unit cost of $3.89 divided by the yield percent of 68%, rounded off to 3 decimal places, gives you $5.721. Again, a big difference between the EP unit cost and the AP unit cost. But then again, there's 32% of what we bought that we no longer have to sell to our customer, so the EP unit cost takes that loss into consideration and will allow us to set a much more realistic selling price. Question 3, we have a hamburger deluxe platter that cost $1.35 to prepare, and we have a food cost percent of 28%. If the menu prices are rounded up to the nearest 5 cents, so not multiples of 5, but 5 cents, let's determine the menu price. Again, to figure out the menu price, we need to take our food cost, and we need to divide it by our food cost percent. So our food cost of $1.35 divided by our 28% food cost percent gives us $4.8142, and we need to round that off so it ends in 5 cents. So there's dimes, there's cents, so this too must become a 5. It's either going to be a 75 or an 85, and 82 is much closer to 85, so that's rounding up to the next number that ends in 5 cents. Now, if the new owners wanted to increase all the menu prices by 15%, we need to figure out what this new menu price is going to be. So essentially, we have to add 15% to $4.85. To do that, we take the $4.85 and we multiply it by 15%. This will give us the value of 15% of $4.85, which we will then add to the $4.85. Unrounded, we get $5.5775, but we need to round up to the nearest 5 cents, so that's going to have to go from $5.5775 to $5.65. Because it can't go down to 55, even though 55 is closer. We were told that it must go up. Now, instead of doing the multiplying by 50 cents, then adding it back to the regular price, we can take a little bit of a shortcut and take the menu price of $4.85 and multiply it by itself, which is the 1, and the decimal 15, which is the 15%, all in one number, which will give us the answer we're looking for without having to do this extra step. So 4.85 times 1.15 will give us that new price with the 15% increase of $5.65. If we're offering a 10% discount to our customers, we want to remove 10% from this $5.65 cost. So we're going to do $5.65 times 10%. That gives us this value of $5.65. Since that's a savings, we must now take that $5.65 and subtract it from the original total of $5.65, which will leave us with $5.09 rounded to the nearest cent. But another little bit of a shortcut, if we're getting a 10% discount, that means we're only paying for 90% of the price. So if we take the price and multiply it by 90%, we get there again to the same place, but in one step less. Doesn't matter which one you choose, use one that you understand. Of course, you must always show me the logic you use and the unrounded answer. Question 4 says that we have a menu price for a chicken dinner, and that's $8.95. It costs us 33% to prepare that. In other words, the food cost is 33% of $8.95. Let's figure out how we get that, and then of course we're going to round to 3 decimal places. If we remember, our food cost percent pyramid, we're going to take our selling price. We're going to multiply it by the food cost percent, and that shows us that the cost to prepare this chicken dinner is $2.954 rounded to 3 decimal places. So again, the selling price times the food cost percent gives us the food cost, or the amount of money the chef has to prepare the chicken dinner. Question 5 says we have a Reuben sandwich that costs $2.20 to make, and we sell it for $5.50 on our menu. So what's the cost percent of this selling price? In other words, what's the food cost percent? Remembering our pyramid, to get the food cost percent, we take our food cost, we divide it by our selling price, and we end up with a food cost percent of 40%. So 40% of our selling price will go to pay for the cost of this Reuben sandwich.